Welcome to this evening's Community Commission meeting. We will begin promptly at 7 p.m. We're just making sure that we are able to go live. Thank you. Again, welcome to the June 30th, 2021 Community Commission meeting. We will begin promptly at 7 p.m. and we are live on Facebook. And I'm saying that more for the people walking into council chambers than I am at people at home. But please let us know if you have any issues hearing our audio. Thank you. Again, thank you for joining the Community Commission meeting for June 30th. We will begin promptly at 7 p.m. with our Welcoming and Diversity Committee. Thank you for being patient. There were agendas on the podium as you came in if you want to follow along. For those of you at home, again, we'll be talking about the Welcoming and Diversity Committee first, followed by the Military Recognition Committee meeting. As a reminder, we are live on Facebook, and we will be beginning momentarily with the call to order, followed by the agenda and discussing the Welcoming and Diversity Committee. Seeing as how this is the first live meeting that these particular committees have joined in on, obviously we have our chair sitting at the center station. I'll be administering the meeting and the technological aspect of everything. For those members of the Welcoming and Diversity Committee that would like to speak, there is a microphone at the podium that you are more than welcome to use, so that way everyone can hear, especially those following at home, which as of right now are a whopping 2. So there we go. Hopefully they can hear us, but I think we should be, our audio-visual issues are not going to be much of a problem to know. All right, it is 7 p.m., so we will go ahead and call to order the Community Commission meeting of June 30th, 2021. We have the agenda before us. Chair Tatiana, do you have any additions or changes to the agenda for your Welcoming and Diversity Committee? Okay, make sure you hit that little button in the center of your microphone. You should see a green light right there, so that way we can hear every word you say.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, we've got you now.
All
Thank
right.
you. All right, so we'll go ahead and start off with the topic of new business, which are future city events. First, really before that, I wanted to extend a thank you to the Welcoming and Diversity Committee and the volunteers that staffed the Juneteenth celebration. That was the first example of the welcoming tent, and I know it was staffed by a number of people that I see here already this evening. So I'd like to thank you, and that's exactly what the Welcoming and Diversity Committee was supposed to be. That's what we wanted, to have that opportunity there. So I do want to thank you for that. And I also want to make sure that you've all registered to volunteer at the Tomato Festival for the volunteer aspect. If anyone at home would also like to volunteer that's not part of the Welcoming and Diversity Committee, you can do so as well at the Tomato Festival website sign-up session. So with that, go ahead and turn it over to the chair if she would like to discuss anything else about any potential future city events before we move into some of the quote-unquote old business.
Okay, well, back to the, excuse me, the Juneteenth celebration. Kudos to the organizers. Kudos to Councilwoman Lawson Rowe. She did a super job organizing the event, and everybody else around her who helped her. Even the rain, didn't stop us. We started out with, a little bit of a rain. But I think that a lot of people came right after the rain. We had a great number of visitors. I do want to thank the members of the committee, the Welcoming and the Diversity Committee, who helped a lot. Our sign, I don't know if anyone saw the sign, the Welcoming and Diversity Committee with all the colors and all the flags. Thank you very much, Janelle, and her daughter, who had an idea what to do with it. Thank you so much. Then also John had an idea to put a sign up there to tell people what we are and who we are representing, and that we are that city of respect, and we are welcoming and welcoming city. So great job, and thank you for everyone that came and volunteered to man the booth. No new business, really. Again, it is important to help with the Tomato Festival, so I'm hoping that everyone is going to chip in there and give us an hour or two, or few, each day that we are there.
Absolutely. I think it's obviously it's going to be a fun time overall, and I put in a request for great weather, so we'll see how well that works out. Madam Chair, there were a couple of questions on future events to kind of add to the city functions that would go forward. Obviously, we've talked about in the past, prior to COVID, there has been a diversity fair that has been mostly led by the school district, but also, one of the other members, Les Samaji, who also kind of worked with that as well. And then in addition to Juneteenth in the future, the idea would be to add the Pride Parade or Pride function that the city may look into. I know that we're having discussions with the Community Association for an addition of those two as well, for the Community Association to help take the lead with that, and I know that they would appreciate support in that regard. And the same. Other city events that may happen that if you would, the committee be interested in participating in, including, farmers market, concerts on the lawn, things like that. Obviously, the list grows all the time, and I don't know if the committee wants to have a discussion at some point about kind of picking and choosing where they get the quote unquote the biggest bang for their buck on, on the number of attendees for some of these things. I think that if you're at every single event, that would be awesome, but I also think it kind of gets lost in the shuffle if you're there all the time. But if you go to some of the more like the Artist and Makers Market, or obviously the Tomato Festival, or something along those lines, some of the bigger events, that maybe that would be something that the committee would like to do we can make arrangements to make sure that there's space available and table, chairs, things of that nature. So I didn't know what you had, if you had any
Yeah, we
thoughts
can
on that.
definitely discuss this within our group and let you know, and then maybe reserve a day when we can be there.
Again, we don't want to overburden the volunteers, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we're trying to get out as best as we can. A couple of other events that may pop up, we have the music on the cul-de-sac, which is not necessarily a wide draw of community events, but I do know that the last concert on the cul-de-sac is actually going to be part of a Nepali dance festival. So that might be a different group of individuals that maybe the welcoming committee would like to participate in that one. That's the last Thursday in July, I believe. So that's something that obviously you guys can discuss amongst yourselves. I don't know what the other acts are right off the top of my head, but I do know that last one in there would be something that might be a possibility as well. As far as any other potential plans, I don't know if, while I understand that it is the summertime and school is quote unquote out for the summer, I did not know if anyone had any thoughts or if any knowledge about the return of the Multicultural Festival, if it would be something like that. I don't know if you have any commentary, if anyone knows anything.
We haven't actually really gone beyond the Tomato Festival.
I don't blame you, neither have we.
It is a big event, so we are hoping to participate there. But John, yeah.
So another thing we talked about was the sign I shared with Techana from another city that had, the city put out yard signs around the community identifying who they were. And you don't have that with you, do you, right now?
I do
But it was a
not.
list of things. It was from the city, and it was like, we are a city of inclusion and diversity, and we welcome people of all faiths, we welcome all genders. And it was a list of things, and the community put these yard signs out and with a little logo from their town. So I shared that with Tachana, and then she put it out on a sign at our table, but it wasn't a specific Reynoldsburg sign. So our committee has talked a little bit about the possibility of working with the city to create such a yard sign so people could put that out in the yard. It was kind of like support our police signs that were put out around the city. So we talked about that. I think I would like to move forward with that, see if we could do something with it. And then also during the Juneteenth festival, I had a couple conversations with people about the stories of the immigrants, of the people in Reynoldsburg. And I find them interesting, so I thought maybe we can have a discussion down the road about a monthly opportunity for people to share their stories, whether it be you, Techana, from your background, or from the Nepalis or the Bhutanese or the Somalis, whatever. So I don't know how we would do that. Maybe something on Facebook or something of people just sharing their stories, because really quite remarkable. I was just stunned about people's lives and what they shared with me. So those are some things we've talked about, and I think we need to. We'll keep moving forward on that, and so lots going on in the city, and I think the Welcoming and Diversity Committee is going to be involved in a lot of those things. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Yes. We'll definitely discuss this into more details.
One other, and I realize that it's typically after the Tomato Festival, but I wanted to throw the question out there. Has there been any discussion on the Macedonian Festival this year?
So the last I heard that there isn't going to be one, simply because you do need a lot of time to plan it and all that. So in terms of planning, I think we have run out of time. But we will definitely would like to plan something for the Macedonian Independence Day, just like what we did something like that here in front of City Hall last year. It might be a little bit different. We are exploring different ideas, but we will definitely keep you updated. And I would definitely want the Welcoming and the Diversity Committee to be there as well.
To the podium, please, so that way everyone can hear.
If the Macedonian Festival is going to be happening, and at this point,
At this point, no.
okay, we're behind you, and we're we're trying to help you in case it happens, so.
Yes, I definitely appreciate your help. I know you were 100% and more behind us last year or year before when it just didn't happen at
Okay.
all. Appreciate your help,
Okay,
but I think we're gonna have to just leave it for maybe next
I
year.
understand.
Yeah.
I understand, okay.
I did have one request, because of the overwhelmingly successful response that we had from the March recognition of National Women's Month, specifically with the number of guest appearances and recognition for the women of Reynoldsburg and the general central Ohio area, at least on the 12 o'clock show and just in general. I would like to see that continued, but also expanded to include other additional months if possible. So I know that that would be something that I would love to see if the committee could look at that. It was refreshing and it was nice. And, you know, the more that we kind of look back at it, I mean, yes, I enjoy talking and bringing up community news and information, but I think a lot of people really appreciated the fact that there were other people to talk to and other viewpoints and other discussionary topics about, you know, what it meant to accomplish some of the things that some of the guests that we had on there were just absolutely phenomenal. And I would love to be able to continue that just with as many different groups as possible. If that's something that the committee would be willing to, you know, to help me out with.
Yeah, that's definitely something going back to John, what John was saying, you know, if we can put a spotlight on some stories of immigrants. So if you open your show to maybe just once a month, that you know, and we can step in, we can find someone that would share their story, that would be wonderful. That would be great.
Absolutely. All right. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, suggestions for the Welcoming and Diversity Committee? Chair, did you have anything specific that we haven't covered already?
I just want to ask if we can begin to start planning on welcoming new residents into the city.
Yeah, we're actually in the process from a city's perspective
Okay,
of gathering
like,
that information.
I understand, like, you know, we're trying to get something going for, you know, get something like either a publication or a pamphlet or something that we can send out to new residents.
That's actually in the
And
plans.
I'd like to be part of that.
Okay. I know that a majority of, not a majority, but a good portion of some of the foundations have been laid down as far as some of the things we've taken a look internally about. I would say probably about a half a dozen of other communities and looked at what some of their community informational guides look like and what kind of information that they have with that. But most sure we'd be able to share that with you. I know we've gotten a couple of quotes for publication purposes. The idea would be that we would have it to coincide with a new website launch sometime later this year, and then we would be able to mail those out for budgetary purposes. We'd have to get it into the budget and council approval, of course, to mail those out at the beginning of next year in mid to late January, depending on how quickly things move through council. And then at that point in time, have enough extras so as new residents do come in, kind of coordinated when, you know, new accounts for water bills open up, that we would be able to send those out automatically to any new resident that opens up a new residence within the city of Reynoldsburg.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, John?
So I'd like to follow up on Les's and this, excuse me for this can of worms, but I have a new neighbor moving into my neighborhood a few doors down in the next week and a half. So, Mayor, I think I might stop by and see what pamphlets we already have, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, there's actually very little that is in existence right now. A lot of it, what I found when we got here is that it was kind of a hodgepodge of things, you know, a Rumpke pamphlet, a kind of a one sheet of the fact of numbers to call, things of that nature. But it was not something that was really, it was kind of hit and miss on what was and was not included. So that's why we're trying to do it. What we can do is when we get our first, I don't want to call it our draft, but maybe when we get close to kind of like a first rendering of something, then we can send that out to the Welcoming and Diversity Committee as well for them to take a look. We are also looking specifically on our website to find a way that that basically a couple of other areas have websites where they take, say, the top 3 to 5 languages that are in the particular community, and then you can actually hit a button and the website itself will transfer to that particular language. That is something we're also investigating. From a computer standpoint, I know it's a matter of code and things of that nature. The concerns that we had is obviously there's a difference between Google Translate and actually having someone professionally go in and translate those things at the same time. So we want to kind of investigate further what the mechanisms are for that, just so that way it actually says what it's intended to say and not a rough Wikipedia-style version of a translation. So because I know technology's on its way, I just have no idea if it's actually there yet.
Yeah, definitely a person will have to translate it properly.
Right. But at our table at the Juneteenth, we had some of the old editions of the Reynoldsburg magazine. I think that Les is part of that. So,
Yeah.
Maybe going over and welcoming and saying hi, welcoming from the diversity and welcoming committee and hand them those and
also
maybe a
probably-
loaf of zucchini bread or something,
And I would probably think that we could have some copies of our Parks and Recreation heirloom guide.
Sure.
So that would be something else just for that part of the community involvement.
So we
Maybe I'll
have those.
experiment with it and see what happens.
Yeah, we
Doesn't
have
hurt.
those, and, you and I can talk, and maybe we can meet up, and I can give you a few copies.
That sounds good. All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
Great idea. All right, and I'll see what available heirloom magazines we have left. I know most of them are for Parks and Rec purposes as well, but it's still something that at least that there's something out there that for certain community events that would be a listing. And then obviously at some point in time, we can talk about how we would work to translate that as well. And I think if anything, translation services, maybe we could put a leaflet in to refer to a website that would be a little bit more cost-effective for translation purposes as opposed to print publication.
Yeah, we definitely have enough copies, quite a few copies of the magazines, the Reynoldsburg magazines.
Okay, you
Yeah.
do? Okay, if you ever need any more before we get ready for our next one, just let me know. All right, and anything else for the good of the meeting today?
Any of the members?
Anybody else want to join up here just to speak on the microphone, just for fun? Tatiana was thrilled that she had to do that today.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Sure, absolutely. I'm open to that if the mayor is. Absolutely.
And I know you'll be devastated to hear, but it looks like we do have a camera malfunction on the center podium, so they may not be able to see your face. They'll be able to see the back of your head, which is great, but that's about the extent of it. So you will not suffer the visual nature that Tatiana has had, as I've kind of gotten the opportunity to zoom in occasionally.
How lovely.
Why don't
Come
yeah,
on
why
up,
don't the members come
members.
on up and at least be able to introduce themselves? Well, yes, but you never said specifically what your name is, so I may know you, but the community can know you as well. Go ahead.
Come on up, guys.
I'm Les Samaji. I'm a publisher of the Reynoldsburg magazine, and been doing it for about 14 years. Another one coming out in a couple months. It's focusing on real estate, but there's a number of other issues in there, number of other personality sketches in there. It's going to be a very nice issue coming up in first week of October.
And the one before this last one was concentrated on immigrants, a lot of immigrant stories. It was a lovely, lovely,
Well,
lovely
the
number.
one before that was the one about the Macedonian
Yeah.
church, which is an incredible gem in Reynoldsburg's history.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Janelle Layton. I am a lifetime resident of Reynoldsburg, and I'm enjoying being on the Welcome and Diversity Committee. I think it's a wonderful thing that to be a part of.
And she's great. She keeps us all informed and keeps up with all the emails and everything. So thank you very much for that.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Siobhan Ross.
Afternoon, evening. My name is Darren. Last I'm Hogue, been in Reynoldsburg for almost 9 years now. Small family, excited to be on this committee. I think some of us are titled co-vice chairs, so yeah, nice to meet everybody.
So next time you can sit up as a co-vice chair with
You
Tatiana.
stole my line, absolutely.
I'm looking out for you.
Thank you.
And my full name is John Syriac. I'm a member of the committee, and so really glad to be part of it. And I always give my push for, if you're watching on Facebook and you're new to the community, make sure you come and visit our Pine Quarry Park at the end of Kingsley Drive. You won't be disappointed. It's a beautiful park, so I'm always
it is.
encouraging people to visit the park.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time and dedication with this. I look forward to seeing you at future city events. And if you, as always, coordinate with Jessica on any committee meetings between now and our next meeting, which will be on July 14th. Well, I'm sorry, it'll be July 28th, I believe, is the date on for the next full meeting here at City Council, not too long before the Tomato Festival. We will probably take a recess during August for other additional committee meetings that the group can have, and then come back in September with the regular meetings when council returns as well. And then we'll start prepping for when you'll next present to council with any other future recommendations. I know that the previous group, the Arts and Beautification and the Traffic and Transportation, have inquired about recommendations or suggestions for council for budgetary purposes and things of that nature. So that would be a good time if you were looking at late September, early October for some of those recommendations to kind of maybe not necessarily, I'm not offering money or something like that, but if you would like to ask council for any kind of funding or any kind of opportunity, or to make recommendations that you feel that would be better to better strengthen council's relationship with our community, that would be a perfect time to do so. And with that, if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and close this one at 7:21 p.m. I enjoy efficient meetings just as much as everyone else. All right. Tatiana, thank you. Everyone else is more than welcome to stay, but seeing as how most of you are already up and moving, I'm going to assume that you're going to go ahead and move on. And with that, we'll go ahead and ask members of the Military Commission to come on up. Chair Renisha, if you want to come on up and sit in that center stage. And then obviously, if anyone else wants to join, you're more than welcome to. If not, when you do have that opportunity to speak, if you could go to the podium, please. Thank you for coming. All right, and welcome again to the military recognition. We will probably do the same thing that the last group did as far as introducing ourselves up at the end of this process. But Renisha is going to be our chair for the evening, and we do have some new business as well as some additional old business. I want to give everybody a brief update of the ceremony that will occur July 12th at 6 p.m. before our regularly scheduled council meeting. We will be recognized as a Purple Heart City for Reynoldsburg, Ohio, and we're very much looking forward to that. We will have an entire itinerary that is being planned out right now that everyone is welcome to attend, and hope to see you there on July 12th at 6 p.m. before council. And we do plan on streaming it live, so that way everybody else can take a look at it as well. We met, I think, Doug Joseph, you were in that meeting when we met with the organization earlier this year. I keep forgetting that it seems like it was a lot shorter time ago, but apparently time has moved faster than I expected. So we'll be here for that one. So I hope to everybody be there. We'll have the itinerary out to you as soon as it is finalized. We have a very rough itinerary. It's probably going to be about a 15 to 20 minute example, and then we'll go from there. With that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Renisha. Go ahead.
Well, good evening. One of the things I'd like to start off kicking off to discuss tonight would be 2021 Veterans Day. I know we had a brief but awesome agenda for last year. I wanted to see if possibly we can kind of combine that some kind of way with the Adopt a Veteran, depending upon how that all goes, whether it be a combination of some type of recognition, but something just a little bit more this year to kind of expand it out. What are your thoughts, Mayor?
I think that's absolutely. I think that's a great. I'd love to hear more specifically about if you've, other adoptive veteran initiatives or if there's something out there for that. But I would love to have that shared, please.
Hi, Doug.
Hello, Doug Joseph. Some of the items on the agenda tonight I asked to be added, and just wanted to give some thoughts to some of the, maybe the direction that we might want to move in a more specific way. Regarding the Veterans Day ceremony that we will probably have in November, I think something like that can always be started on, early, and talking about, who we'd like to be as the speakers. My suggestion, much like what we did for the Memorial Day event, is have an elected official, a state or federal elected official, maybe a veteran, a family member of a current service member, and maybe even a military chaplain to give an invocation. Something that we could do also, and again, I think we did this at the Memorial Day event, is a recognition of past and current service members that happen to be in attendance by name, all the elected officials and the members of the Military Recognition Committee. As far as the program, maybe do a focus on the history of and importance of Veterans Day specifically and its predecessor, Armistice Day. Perhaps at that point, we could also make some announcements regarding presentation of a timetable for next year's Memorial Day event and any other events that we might want to schedule at that event, so people have that in the back of their mind. The event we had this past May was good. I think there's one area we could have maybe made an improvement, is maybe if we could have had chairs at the event where people could have sat down. A number of people thought it was a little bit long to stand, especially some of the older people that I spoke to. That might be something we could consider. We could possibly borrow chairs from local veterans groups, churches, or schools. That was what I was thinking as far as that. That was on the point with the Veterans Day. I'd like to just briefly go over the couple other points, and we can go back and talk about the others. As far as the Adopt a Veteran program, that's something I just kind of thought of about a month ago when I asked to have that added to the agenda. I'm not sure to what degree other communities do something like that. They might call it something else. But what I envisioned is this could be something to help recognize veterans from Reynoldsburg, and which would then seek to assist them and their families in everyday living. Veterans could be identified through a public media campaign and be offered a variety of community services, things such as yard work, painting, grocery shopping, anything they might need, they might not be able to do on their own. Just a way to say thank you for their service. Reynoldsburg citizens could sign up to do the volunteer community service assignments for veterans. Such participants could include local residents, business owners, their employees, students, churches, civic groups like Lions, Rotary, and Boy and Girl Scouts. And then lastly, I thought it might be appropriate to identify a volunteer of the year and award them an award as most outstanding adoptive veteran volunteer for the year, and have that presented by the mayor at the Veterans Day ceremony every year, starting this fall. Is just to highlight whatever that volunteer did for veterans in our community. The other 2 points I wanted to cover.
Wait, before you move on.
Yes.
So for the adoptive veteran, I thought more along the lines, because I know we talked about this before. There should be some type of way to find out when we have veterans returning home or someone that is coming out of service. Usually there's some type of welcome, whether it be a presentation by the city, to welcome them back. We did talk about leaving the yellow ribbons in Memorial Plaza because veterans often come home. I do know that RWB has more of a connection in finding out who's returning home and getting them more acclimated. So I'm aligned with what you're thinking, but I'm also thinking probably just a step further where we actually can acknowledge that veteran once they're home and once they're settled. I do want to kind of talk to someone just to find out how that feels when they return home and how soon, do they want that recognition? Some veterans don't want it at all, and some want it, right away. It just depends on where they're coming from and the mindset that they're in when they're returning. So I think it would be important to probably ask around some of the veterans that we know. and
Yeah, I
go
know,
from there.
sometimes it's hard to get that information. A lot of that information's protected as far as, who the veterans are, where they are, what they're doing at any given time. Obviously, that's why any kind of public awareness campaign, to let the veterans know we're here. We're here to help them, and we want to highlight what they did for our country. A lot of times they don't know we're here either, and they're just going through their life thinking, I did my service and I'm going to move on, without really thinking that there are people that want to thank them publicly. And so I'm all for any effort we can identify our veterans, whether it be through, talking with people on the street, our neighbors, talking to people with different organizations we might belong to, putting notices on different Facebook pages, just to create awareness that we're here and we would like to know who our veterans are, specifically from Reynoldsburg, so we can highlight their service to our country. So I definitely concur.
Yeah, it could be building a relationship too on a community level. You have the base that's here. We have recruiting offices and things like that. My husband's a veteran, so we do know some folks that are still active and some people that are not. But it could be just the building of communication and community relationships with organizations like RWB, as well as, meeting someone over at DSCC. There's a process to it, but it's just figuring out what it is. It may take me a little bit of time, but I see where you're going with it, Doug, and I agree to let them know that we're here and we definitely support.
And again, this is something I think we should start, soon as we can, so we can start getting people signed up to participate. And it may be something we can't accomplish in the next couple of months, but over at least the next year, try to have something in place. Because obviously, I think talking and working with our youth is going to be one of the best ways to get people involved. Many times they're looking for public service opportunities. It's a good way to bring together people of different eras, different generations, and just talk about, why what they did for our country was so important. I think many times young people can sometimes be a little bit tuned out from that. They're so focused on what's going on in their own lives at school level, getting ready for graduation or what have you, and they're not really thinking about what happens beyond the city limits of Reynoldsburg. So that would definitely be something I think we can try to work toward over the next year. We can start talking about what would be the best way to identify our veterans and how to bring people in to participate.
Yeah, the recruitment, is that the Marines or Army? That's our recruitment office. in the
Off of
plaza?
256.
Yes,
I believe it's the Army, but I'm not 100% sure. I think it is.
okay.
Um,
I'll
one-
reach out to them because I've talked to them before. That's how we ended up with the high school at Memorial Day.
Okay. One thing that, that might help is we can reference, we have a list of those families that have sponsored a military banner program, that we can reach out to those families as well and make sure that those individuals are at least invited to Veterans Day
Yes.
ceremonies in the future, and we can kind of get an established guest list in that regard. And then obviously we can even have them, give them the option that they can extend it to others that they may know in the community as well. I know that we've talked to representatives that that put the memorial at Reynoldsburg Livingston Campus High School. We've talked with them about maybe potentially consolidating that and bringing that into an area around the Memorial Plaza. That is something that we're looking at just for maintenance facilities and for the recognition aspect of it. So that may be another avenue again as well to kind of continue on. But I think with some of the things that you suggested here, I think the biggest obstacle is just the communication aspect. And then, like you said, sometimes veterans are more than willing to receive the recognition and others are not necessarily as upfront about it. It just kind of depends.
Yeah, and probably the connection with those families will probably shed a little bit more light. I know we had started the banner program, but I wasn't sure how many people had actually sponsor, an actual banner.
I think that I think there are anywhere between 15 to 20 that we've done the last couple of years. It's only been really 2 years since the program was initiated. So I think but I think we have we have a good group. I know there were actually new banners, new veterans that were recognized this time, so it's not the same group from 2 years ago as to was this year or will be in the fall. So there'll be different options with it.
Okay, awesome. Well, if we can get that list, and I'm happy to make contact with those families and see what direction we can move in. And then in the future, when we have events, I know George just does great with the programs, but we can get a letter going or find a way to communicate with them, whether it be via email or a phone call, and then a follow-up as well.
Absolutely. I think the more more members that we can bring in to honor and recognize, the better.
The last couple items I had were both old and new business pertain to the brick paver program and the service memorials. Again, that's something I think that we should continue to move forward on. The committee has previously discussed initiating the brick paver program where we could have people purchase bricks for the Memorial Plaza with service members' names and service rank and the branches and so forth. And I know, Mayor, you'd indicated that would be fine to include people who weren't necessarily from Reynoldsburg, but identify on the brick somehow that they were from Reynoldsburg. And maybe we can incorporate the city seal into the brick or something that would indicate they were actually Reynoldsburg residents, and anyone without that would just simply be service members. That's an idea. Again, if this is something we could try to get going and have even just a small number of these bricks in place by the Veterans Day ceremony in November, that would be a very positive thing to keep moving forward. That way, every time, basically, I'm thinking we have 2 big events at Memorial Plaza every year, Veterans Day and Memorial Day. If we could have something additional for each one of those, and if we could have something like the brick pavers for this Memorial Day or Veterans Day, that would be something new for people to see at the ceremony. As far as the service memorials, I was again looking, Mayor, at some of the examples that you had previously sent out back in March that we could choose from, and again, basically since that time we haven't really had any discussion on how we want to proceed with that. I think probably the first thing the committee will need to do is decide what direction to go with. I know it's been talked about the different service branches, or possibly even a war conflict to identify specifically. You have to start somewhere when you're starting from some scratch, which we would be doing. One suggestion I had was to start with the U.S. Army branch, as it's the oldest and largest military branch in the country. And if we could if the committee could select a design and arrange for whatever funding is necessary to have that constructed by Memorial Day next year, or if the committee and the mayor and the city administration thought it'd be more appropriate, we could even do it on June 14th, which is both Flag Day and the 247th birthday of the U.S. Army. So either of those could be a possibility if we could have something in place by, basically 11, 12 months from now to coincide with those dates. But I think the committee should definitely have a discussion on if that's what we want to do. Pick either a service branch or pick a war, and then go in that direction. Even possibly go back and forth. You pick a service one year, pick a conflict another year. But I would definitely be, open to any discussions on which direction would be best for the city.
Well, in anticipation of this item, we did finally get in after an exhausted amount. We got in a different quoting system for the service branch memorials. That's just the one that we had gone on, so we had gotten a quote back. And also, one of the big questions was the funding aspect of it. Thankfully, the America Recovers Act money has now been it's been approved yesterday by the Governor DeWine, and it is on its way.
Okay.
And so we actually do have the funding for that. That's really what I was hoping to make sure that we would have the opportunity to use those funds for this particular program. I would suggest that the members of the committee and anyone watching who would like to participate, that we actually set a specific time to take a site visit, because I think while the service branch ideas, we had talked about originally in the plans of having them kind of line the brick paver patio, but then at the same time, I think we should all be on site and committee can make the decision about, all right, so what if we do go to a theater of conflict, and where would those things stand in that regard? And while we may have funding for, let's say the service branches, or we could, again, maybe mix and match, have a couple of service branches and then move on to a couple of conflicts. But I think the spacing and the location of all of them would be something that I think that we would want to do. So that way, as the years move forward and we do find other methods of, of actually funding for this particular piece, that it's kind of a plug and play at that point. We make the decisions as a committee, and then we know that this is what's going to go here and that's what's going to go there. And then as the years go by, we can always continue to add to it.
Yeah, and considering, space is definitely, a concern. That's why the pillar, the vertical pillars seem to make more sense, because they definitely don't take versus a large rock or boulder with a plaque or something like that on there, takes up more space. So, and they're, 2 to 3,000.
I think my biggest concern is just making sure that no one feels left out. It is one of those things where it's really hard to be somewhat inclusive with limited space and funding. But when it comes to our veterans, it's so important to make sure that none of them feel left out. So I don't know if it's one of those things where we do an acknowledgement of a time period based on how long the length of the war it ran, and when whoever the president was in office called it to an end. So we know Operation Iraqi Freedom ran for a length of time. For us, it was over, but for a lot of veterans, it was probably, 10 years ago when they officially brought it to an end, because then we had another war began. So it could just be acknowledging those war times, since they run for a length of time. I just want to make sure that when we do it, no one feels left out. Because I know that there was a big thing about, having a representation of flags, having 2 at a time, and then when you start to talk to veterans, for example, we have a veteran at the YMCA, which is their executive director, and he's like, I like to see all the flags all up at once. He's like, I love how it's displayed now, but, to have them all displayed at once is something that he would like to see, So I agree, we do need to take a site visit and try to get as much feedback as possible to where we don't leave any veteran feeling left out when they visit the plaza.
So would we, because I want to make sure that we are expedient in all of this. So let's say that sometime between the last 2 weeks in July, prior to the Tomato Festival, because at that point in time, that's all that, that a lot of people are going to have time to focus on. But if we were to set something up, give it maybe 2.5 weeks to get the word out about who might want to come to this particular location, have a site visit sometime during the last 2 weeks of July. Maybe that'll give you, the committee, time to identify those conflicts in the time periods that you're referring to. So then we can figure out, all right, well then, so how many theaters of conflict are we looking at? So that way we can kind of identify how much space we would need. The service branch numbers are a little bit easier. We have that one, but as far as the theater of conflict, so that way we can have it planned out and spaced out. And then at the same time, we can also take a look at, if the committee, like we've talked about expanding the flagpole area and having something along those lines as well. I would hesitate to bring in anyone specific from any design firm, because this would probably be something that would have to be kind of bid out in that, and I don't think we'll have that time to do it. But I would like to at least set up a time and maybe bring our service director along, because he'll be the one that will be working in that process, so that way we can get his feedback about the logistical aspect, specifically when it comes to lighting. I know, which is one of our challenges when the flagpoles went up this time, is to make sure that any flags that are out there, that we can have it well lit, not only for the purposes of recognition, but also the safety concerns. And I know that sometimes, occasionally, vandalism does occur. And while I don't think it would happen on something as busy as that particular intersection, you never know. But no, I think that if we were to establish a site visit sometime towards the end of the month, and that would give you enough time to get some of those other things in order, I think that would be in order.
And that would be, I think that'd be good timing too, because then that would coincide just prior to the next committee meeting anyway.
When is our next one? Because I know the 14th is for beautification.
The
so
14th
end of
is
July.
Arts and Beautification and Traffic and Transportation. So the next one, as I flip my calendar here, would be the 26th of July. So if we maybe did it the week before.
Yeah, I was thinking the week before that, which would give us time to get through the Purple Heart ceremony, and so that following week. And I'm open to during the week or the weekend.
And then what I'll do is, while I have the financial quote as far as what it would cost for the service branches, what I'll do is I will at least, maybe I can get some design sketches and some options between now and then to get an idea of what they would look like, and they can just send some other ones, something a little bit more specific than the ones previous, where you can actually see what they look like.
I'm really excited that the funding was just like yesterday, because we've been waiting. So.
I've been very persistent in finding out when all of this stuff comes out, because obviously a number of different initiatives, that we've tried to take with the city with some of these funds that will benefit everybody in the city, and I think this would be a perfect example. I was hoping that this would get in to the point where we could actually use this funding for this purpose.
I agree.
Do you have any indication on, once the decision's made and with the funding available, what type of timetable we're looking at before something like that would be able to be constructed?
When we looked at it before, and this was at a time before COVID, once the funding was established, they were looking at maybe 4 to 6 months at maximum, depending on what style, if it was granite or sandstone. Granite tends to be the one that is the most popular, just because it's long-lasting, and that would depend on what the committee would look at. But obviously, at this point in time, you're looking 6 months. I mean, it would be, and then we could install it in the spring, either just prior to Memorial Day next year.
Okay.
So as long as we would have something in place by, I would say, any kind of final decisions made, I would say by October at the absolute latest, which I think we could probably come to a conclusion much before that. But if we had something done by October, then that would make sure that we could get everything taken care of.
Yeah, I would love to hear. I really want to see what George has to say about it, because I know he's emailed me some stuff, and as we've traveled, we've kind of seen some things along the way. So I do know he has some recommendations on it. So it'd be great to go ahead and set that up for the following week and go from there. And then we can also look at the examples that we've already had picture-wise.
Yeah, and if you, George, if you want to send me anything that you have that you've seen on some things, and then that way we can kind of bring it together, and we can put a packet together, so in case it's more than just the small number of us here on the site visit, then we can have a couple of extra for those that may join us.
Hi,
Hi.
George. Welcome. Good to see you.
It's good to be here. My name is George Busey. I'm the commander of American Legion Post 798 here in Ronesburg. I'm sitting here listening to Adopt a Veteran and these monuments and all that. Well, first of all, adopting a veteran, just like our post right now, I know we got about 60 veterans here in Ronesburg, and I got all the addresses. So if we contact not only American Legion Post here, that we can provide individual addresses and names that send out a letter to them. Same way with the VFW. I know Pius, that I used to be a member of the church here, has a veterans program, Armed Forces Day program. I'm sure all the other churches here and probably in Ronesburg has the same thing. So why reinvent the wheel
When
and
it
trying to find the
exists.
names? And all you got to do is contact them and get that information to find veterans. And once the word gets out, trust me, through the veteran community, it'll spread out amongst the community so we don't miss anybody, as we said. As far as the monument, yeah, I agree we ought to have one, not individual monuments. Usually, if you look at a monument for any veterans organization or any memorial, it's one big granite-type stone or, marble stone with all the service logos on there. Then usually they have the service flags around it too. So to have an individual monument for each one, I would say no, I wouldn't buy that. I wouldn't buy that, that's my opinion. I would have one with all the logos on there. The other thing is, example, you talk about Veterans Day or Memorial Day, Veterans Day. Over in Silent Home Cemetery that the American Legion, our post, has adopted, there's over 200 veterans buried there, about 220. And I'm sure Pine Grove over here and the other cemeteries have a list of veterans. All we got to do is contact them. And then we, again, from the city, send out a letter to the families to say, hey, this is what we're doing. Welcome aboard. Come on. We're going to recognize you and honor you. My post did that. We went over 600 names who went all the way back to the Civil War to hit all the conflicts up until the current operation in Freedom in Afghanistan. We got all the names in the local Reynoldsburg veterans who have passed away recently in the last few years. So we have those names already. All the military organizations, I'm sure the VFW has those names. So I don't want to sit here and say, let's start reinventing the wheel. Let's use the organizations that you got now, contact them and say, hey, this is what we're doing. Most naturally, you're probably going to have, the Prophecy Act and all this good stuff. But being a veteran, and just like over there at the VA, I'm sure they got a list of names of all the veterans too, list of names with veterans here in Reynoldsburg. So as far as a memorial, yeah, I've got many ideas. And just like the Purple Heart ceremony, I'll be interested to see what's going on with that, being a city. And also, we're a POW recognition city too. I think we ought to have something up there for that. These are two separate things. Two separate monuments that you need to have there at the memorial. Also, the one big memorial, like I say, with all the service logos on there, and dedicating where it's from and all that good stuff. So
We're open with everything, and we do have the placard for the POW recognition
yeah,
city.
you can have placards made.
We do
And
have
I tell you,
that.
the local, we had a couple because I was working on a memorial for the high school, Reynoldsburg High School. All the seniors that went to war and passed away. We got all the names of all the high school seniors that graduated Reynoldsburg High School that have died, that we got the names and all that, that we were going to make plaques on and do the memorial over there for the high school. Until I found out about the plaza, then everything started crashing in that we could work with. But yeah, I think we need to get together and get all this information. We can provide a lot of information. And the other thing is, we need to start talking to the VFW too, because they're a big organization also. So you say, okay, and I know the Army's the biggest one, but the only reason why they're the biggest, because they were first, they're the oldest one going, and we're second, okay?
Could it be
But we
perhaps
need
that maybe
to-
you were not a member of the Army?
We cannot say, okay, this is the Army, this is the Air Force, now you got the Space Force. So you got another one you got to add now too. So it's going to be interesting. And I'm more than willing to work with you and get, being on the commission. That's why I'm on here, to help out and make our job easier to get these things done.
Well, ultimately, this is for the veterans and those that have since passed in the military forces for recognition. So we are not wedded to the 6 pillars or something. That just happened to be something that was in part of the original design sketch. So I am open to whatever it is that the committee decides upon and whatever the community feels is most appropriate. I'm more than happy to support that. This is not for me. This is for veterans. This is for our military forces.
And we talked about, along those lines too, we talked about Tomato Festival. The last one we had a booth in there that we set up to get registered new members and veterans and all that. And in fact, I'm going to be asked to do that again this year, set up a booth. But I think the other organizations or whatever, to let them know that, hey, this is what we're doing for veterans in Reynoldsburg now. Again, like I say, being here for 30 years and being a former safety director and service director here, I'm thrilled to see this taken off the way it is, because it's something that is long overdue, as I mentioned at our memorial. As far as Veterans Day ceremonies, we conduct one at the Silent Home Cemetery every Veterans Day. We have our ceremony planned and all that, we do that. So we can insist and do it at the plaza here, be something different that we can enlarge and do that, invite the families and all that. So the foundation is there. We just need to grow on it and work on it and make it happen, that's all.
Yeah, it's pulling all the strings together.
Pardon me?
I said it's pulling all the strings together.
Yeah, there you go. There's a lot of loose ends. It takes a lot of work, but
We'll get there.
let's not reinvent the wheel, though.
Yep, but I appreciate you, George. That's why I asked for you. I figure you had a gold mine somewhere. But yeah, definitely for the Tomato Festival, you may want to talk to Jeff at the end of the meeting, because he has a new position at the VA where he can get veterans signed up for healthcare. And the Tomato Festival may be an outlet, or there may be an event where he can set up and get veterans signed up that may or may not have healthcare through the VA.
All the information we've got is available to the commission.
Yeah.
So we need to just contact the other organizations and the local religious organizations, and I'm sure we can get those names of the families and stuff, yeah. How we find out how they're getting out and they're coming home is going to probably be the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
But once I think the word gets out, gets spread out, I think that'll happen.
Well, what I'll do, just to help kind of further certain parts along with that on our side, is I'll work to see if we can find someone that can actually work with the brick pavers, and maybe with a goal of if we can at least get, say, potential advertisement out during the Tomato Festival, so that way people, if they wanted to go with a brick paver, that we could have something out at the Tomato Festival. We could have it at your booth, we could have it at the Welcoming Diversity, and I'm sure the two political booths that will be out there will be welcoming of it as well, to try and spread it out for the veterans that would be interested in, and families that would be interested in having that brick paver as well.
So maybe that's, instead of me volunteering, maybe me volunteering at the gate should actually have a table somewhere where we
Oh,
can
absolutely.
show folks what that looks like.
Well, I think we ought to have one, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but I'm saying like to make sure that we feature
Yeah.
the bricks, because I know we've talked about it, and I think there's but it's between 100 and 300 for the brick or
Give
something
or
like
take
that.
a little bit.
And so during that time, when it runs about, Tomato Festival's what, 4 days, 5 days?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Thursday through
so
Saturday.
that could be one of those things where, I wouldn't say I would wipe out all of my volunteer time there, but I wouldn't mind having a military commission table there present, to be able to show the different brick options, because it'll be a lot of traffic coming through there, and that's our next biggest event after the 4th of July parade.
Absolutely. I'll get right to work on that, and hopefully we'll have something before we meet at the end of the month.
Sounds good. Thank you, George.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Doug.
All right. If there's any other questions, comments, things for us to work on other than the list that we have?
No, I think this is great.
All right. With that, with the chair's permission, I guess we'll go ahead and close the meeting down at 7:56 with a lot of homework to do. And if you just want to get together as a committee and throw out a couple of dates for that week that we discussed, and then that way I can coordinate with our service director and we can get something out there. And I'll work on the legislative end for anything that we need in that regard. But I do believe that most of this falls under the threshold of the $25,000. I would still like to let council know what's going on, so they're aware of it, just for this particular thing. But yeah, I think we should be in good shape.
I agree.
All right. With that, thank you very much. Everyone at home, if you would like to volunteer for any of these particular committees, you are more than welcome to. One, two, or all of them. It's completely up to you. You can also volunteer again for the Tomato Festival at the Tomato Festival website page, or you can message us here at the city, and we will definitely connect you with who we can to get you on board. With that, thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening. Drive home safely.